Hey guys, George here with Roofgraf. A quick video today on how to measure roofs in more rural areas where you don't have the full assistance of the software. So starting on the jobs page as usual, we'll hit the plus icon, jump straight into a proposal, and we're going to take a project out in North Carolina for today. So same up to this point as with any other project, you've got your aerial view, just make sure your red pin is on the roof and then go to confirm imagery. Now in this case, as you may run into from time to time, Nearmap have not covered this particular part of the world. So what we'll need to do is actually switch our providers on the right hand side. So we'll select Google to start with, and there we have essentially the best image available for this property. Once you have that in place, hit start measuring. We'll move on to the drawing tool. And then just really a couple of extra steps involved on these types of projects. If you haven't seen the other videos on drawing, maybe check those out first. But very, very simple, guys. Starting on the left hand side of the image, click on the first corner at the perimeter of the roof. You'll see that blue line created as you move your mouse. You can click a second time on the next corner, and then essentially just repeat that process all the way around the outside of the roof to begin with. So it's exactly the same as it would be on an aerial, on a near map image. This one's obviously taken from a satellite, but all the way around the outside, back to where we started, and you'll see as soon as I click on that first point for a second time, those blue lines get a little bit thicker. And that means that you've now completed that facet. You've basically drawn out an entire surface. Now, don't be afraid to come back and tidy up some of those corners if you think you went a little bit quick. Once we've got the perimeter in place, don't be afraid to hide your dimensions. Just means you get a clearer view of the roof there. And the next step here, guys, is to separate out the different facets on the roof. So first thing I'll do, starting at my perimeter, I'm going to run along the ridge line here, click where that meets the rake, and then take that rake over to this point here. So we've now separated out this lower story, as it were, and obviously this other facet here on the back of the house. Continuing in that fashion, let's get our ridge line. So just starting at one end, clicking once, and then again on the far side. And this one looks like it's got a tiny bit of eave coming onto a rake there, so we'll get that in. Obviously, into a valley, I should say, and then obviously the following valley out to the far side, and then lastly, we'll get our main ridgeline on the front portion of the roof. So I'm pretty happy there. That's a pretty good outline of the roof. Next thing we'll want to do, obviously in this case we don't have the option to use our apply button. We haven't seen that appear in our right hand side. So what this means, guys, is that Roofgraf cannot find the pitch of that roof automatically, and it cannot identify the types of lines that we've drawn here. The reason for this is based on the data that's available. There is new data captured every day. We're constantly updating that in the software, but if you don't see that apply button, it means that essentially we don't have the data available to automatically pull that information. So not a problem, we can still get an accurate report here, but what you'll need to do is actually manually enter your pitch. So that may be something you can do immediately if you're familiar with the property. You may want to take a street view on this one. Just spin that round. Here we go. This is the one we're working on today, so we can get an idea. My untrained eye says that's probably about a 6 or a 7 on 12. Obviously at the front here we can always jump that image down the street slightly, get a better view of other parts of the roof. Like I say, probably a 6 or a 7 to start with. So back to our design tool, we'll go to edit pitch, click anywhere on that roof and enter it in. I'll say maybe it's a 7 to start with. I can apply that to all facets, or if I find later on, hey, that part at the back of the roof there is not quite so steep, I can always click on that facet individually, this one at the back here, and then we'll enter say a 5, and we'll just use the apply button rather than apply all. So now you can see everything at the front of the property there is listed as a 7, but that part out the back is a 5. So it is a little bit more manual, but it still allows you to update that information, say, once you arrive on site, or as I say, if you've got a good eye, you can do it using the street view, as I have. Once you've got the right pitch in, obviously, guys, we are still going to want to know what types of lines we've drawn. So we're going to use the menu on the right-hand side to do this. Let's say we'll start by selecting eave. You can see the tick next to the eave. Now when we go back to our drawing, we can click on all our eaves and you'll see them change into that dark blue colour. So you should probably be able to see which ones are eaves from the aerial view, but again, don't be afraid to jump back into the street view there, just to kind of remind yourself of the structure of the building. You will notice as well, guys, we've got a little bit of orange coming along our eave here. If I hide the dimension for a second, there you go. So if I jump back to the street view, let's just make sure we've done that properly. And really the part of the roof that we're drawing here is just in, I think it's just on the other side actually. Let's have a look. No, it's on that side. No evidence of an eave, so I may have drawn that incorrectly. Just going to jump back one more time. And no, it appears there is no eave overlapping that valley there. So actually, having used the Street View, I've now been able to validate my design, and I've realised actually no, there is no eave. That just goes straight into valley. So I've just pulled those corners together. And now we can continue identifying our line types. So we'll say, okay, we've got valley in here on either side. We've got some rake on the very front of the property and on either side towards the back. So just colouring those lines in as purple. This will all be rake, of course, as well. We see some more orange lines here, guys. That's your flashing. So Roofgraf essentially adds that wall flashing automatically underneath the rake because it recognises there's additional roof material below. So if we use the Street View one more time just to illustrate that, essentially the wall flashing is going just under here where we see that slight shade. So that will be added for you automatically. Anytime you draw a rake or an eave where we see additional roof material below it. Continuing on with our line types, let's select ridge next, and obviously we'll click on those 3 ridges there to turn yellow. So at this point I have a pretty good sort of initial measurement on that roof. Really useful, as I say, guys, just to kind of have an idea of the number of squares and get a bill of material together. Obviously this is all subject to change based on a site visit, but I would say probably a 7 on 12 is about right there. We'll just update that for the entire roof. And at this point you're done. At least until you arrive on site, you can do all of this from the office, from your phone, from the truck, wherever you happen to be. And obviously from there you hit your next button, and then just like with any other projects in Roofgraf, we'll take those measurements, run it through your templates, give you your bill of material, and then very quickly we'll get on to at least a preliminary proposal in this example. So hopefully that gives you guys a hand. Again, as always, give us a call if there are any questions. My number is, or our number I should say, is 888-997-1101 extension 2. Thanks guys, we'll see you next time. Bye bye.